I don't care if a trend is good, I don't care if a trend is pretty, but what I care about is where a trend comes from. Today we're decoding 10 of them, 5 American, 5 French, and of course the cultural wiring underneath. And because we care a little bit more than just our own opinion in this world, we will analyze this and it will make sense. It will not be about good taste, because good taste is not to be found today. But we will understand more why we see stuff. So let's get into identity, economy, and attention, and how we read clothes that we see on the streets. And who's not really a winner. This is not a competition, but you judge by yourself. Hello. Welcome back to my huge channel, everybody. This is tubavalon, and on this channel, we are analyzing fashion theories and design. And as a self-appointed cultural ambassador that I am today in the name of the United States, I will be fighting and explaining the American trends to you. My far more sophisticated inner self, which I want to claim it's French, but it's neither. I'm neither American nor French. We'll be talking about the Parisian trends and try to explain some of them. So yes, this is basically a cultural diplomacy session, and it will be me, myself, and I working against each other, talking about clothes and questionable shoes. Let's go. I want to start with the Vibram 5 fingers. And just a quick disclaimer here, if you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also join the Patreon if you're more into these kind of videos that are analytical and funny and also explain some sort of stuff like Fashion Week, having talks with business insiders, and having access to the Discord channel where we are globally tons of people talking about fashion every day, where you can share your looks and don't have to share your looks as well, and you can just share your opinion and maybe sometimes fight for it. But it's the most beautiful space in the fashion world where people meet. And I'm so happy to be owner of this Discord. Oh my God, that's such a coincidence. The link is down below. Join the Discord chat for finding other low-key friends that are actually high-key, that just don't dare to say it in public and are obsessed with fashion. So let's get back to Vibram 5 fingers. So the Vibram 5 fingers are actually Italian by birth. Before anybody gets a heart attack here, why is it considered an American trend? Because it is an American trend, the Vibram 5 fingers. But damn, they're Italian. Because Vibram, which you could assume to be a very sporty, Americana, cool sportswear brand name, is actually based on the founder's name, which is Vitale Bramani. He has been making high-performance soles since the 1930s and originally for mountaineers in the Alps. The toe glove design we know today came actually just in 2005 and was invented by the designer Robert Fleary. It was marketed as a way to protect your feet while letting them move like you were barefoot. And here's the part where the US plays an important role. In 2009, an American journalist called Christopher McDougall published Born to Run. It was a cult hit about the Tarahumara people in Mexico, which are ultra-distant runners and who wear thin leather sandals and can run hundreds of miles without any injury. The book suddenly started an insane running craze all over the world. Suddenly, Vibrams weren't just old Italian shoes, they were a badge of belonging for America's new wellness tribe. People suddenly got interested into starting to run, but also in a healthier, more natural way, because there is this tribe out there that is insanely talented and never has injury, and it was running miles every day. So we should try that as well. And that was kind of appealing to the new wellness aesthetic that we developed around the 2010s. Fast forward to now, we see that the barefoot running hype is slightly over. Running is still as popular as it ever was, but it's definitely not the barefoot running type anymore. And that might also be because Vibram had to handle a few lawsuits because of injuries of people just wearing these shoes. And running with them, because they thought that's what nature asked me to do, to run barefoot. But some did manage that, and that kind of shortened the popularity of these shoes in running. But the shoes have been completely reborn in a completely different context in 2025, a context Vibram was probably never expecting. First, there happened something not only in 2025, but probably in the 2020s, Gobcore, the trend of wearing high-performance outdoor gear in everyday city life. Second, something we definitely developed more since 2024 and which is still holding on until today, it's the ugly chic core. We love ugliness. The weirder the footwear, the cooler the flex usually. Crocs had their moment, Salomon had theirs, and now it's Vibram's turn. So here we have again an absolute functionality-driven product that has turned into a trending, fashionable item, which is pretty interesting in understanding where the shoe comes from. So before judging somebody wearing 5-finger vibrams, it's cool also to know where this shoe comes from and why that person probably decided to wear it, because this can have different reasons as well. So in my opinion, the vibram shoe is not only distinguished by its 5 fingers, which just look weird to a lot of people. I think it's a bit like not liking spiders. They're just like 5 toes that you're not used to see anymore. But also, it's a cultural status symbol. Vibrams aren't expensive and they operate like a luxury item in terms of distinction. If you watch my other videos, you know that we're talking here about subcultural capital. Value that comes from insider recognition and not the price. Wearing them just means you belong to a certain tribe. Either you're wellness obsessed, you're a bit ironic, or you're just a bit contrarian and just like to go against the hype. So you're not really showing off that you get money, you're kind of showing off that you get it. You know, it's really a if you get it item. And this makes sense when we think about reverse ostentation, which sociologists also use to describe this phenomenon, proving your taste by not looking conventionally stylish, just doing the reverse. Vibrams are the anti-hype sneaker. So you're swimming against the mainstream, which is cool. So that means you have some distinction. It's an item that is accessible to anyone, but only a certain group of people knows exactly how to make this shoe look intentional. And once worn intentional, it makes it just appear cool and turn into a trending item. And a lot of these people wearing it intentionally probably, and I hope it was the ones wearing it intentionally, are the ones that made it a trend. That's why the 5-finger vibram sneakers are popular. I hope this helps to explain this a tiny bit. But you know, we have something similar that is coming from France, maybe from Paris, which is the tabi ballerina. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And I know this is a global trend, all of these things, let's be honest, you know, I just needed a hook for this video, so I called it American versus French. Everything is trending everywhere, but I mean, I'm trying to find origins as well, so I put some effort into this. I want this to be appreciated. And the tabi ballerina origins also in Paris. But if we go deep, deep down, it's actually not even considerable Paris. It is Japanese. The traditional tabi sock with a split between the big toe and the rest dates actually back to the centuries and was designed to be worn with thonged sandals. In 1988, Belgian designer Martin Magella, working in Paris, reinterpreted that split toe shape into a leather boot for his debut collection. The design became his signature and was loved and loathed. The ballerina came a few years after this and made actually absolute sense for contemporary design. Magella's avant-garde split toe and the Parisian love for a good ballerina. So something evolved that was wearably flat for this city, try walking in here with heels, but also avant-garde enough to be considered a collector's item, an intellectual's item, something very special. You're so different from other people wearing a tabi ballerina. And the reason that the tabi ballerina got so influential right now, because it exists for almost 25 years or something, I think it was launched end of the 90s, is that we have two very strong style aesthetics that are pushing this product specifically, which is ballet core and the crave for avant-garde. We have the hyper-feminine wave of ballet flats, wrap tops, soft colors, and second, Magella's ongoing cult status among all fashion insiders. And by combining the comfort of a flat with a instantly recognizable split toe, the shoe works in both worlds and it's delicate enough for balletcore and conceptual enough for avant-garde street style. And just like the vibrams, the tabis are not really about mass appeal. They were never really supposed to appeal any mass, but they're about signaling you're in the know. And I know this drives a lot of people nuts that really intentionally wear these products, and instead they have to see with their own eyes on the streets, bleeding tears coming down their face, how people that are wearing it very unintentionally are running it around as well and not really understanding the product. But the question is context so relevant to love a product? That's a completely different topic, not for today. So what happens if you see a person on a Parisian street wearing a tabi? It just means it's a code for something. And if you understood what the tabi stands for, you assume that that person is also in the know of that code and in that subculture. And while this shoe is actually like not the most expensive shoe, but actually I think not say that anymore because the prices at Magella, guys, insane. So it is one of the more expensive shoes now on the luxury market now, I guess. It's of course open end, but the Magella tabi ballet flat is definitely not an entry-level fashion insider product. It's probably something you really invest in because you really want to. But if there's a person that is wearing it right now, it's definitely because of its cultural value, like 90%. And let's say 10% just don't. Just do it for the hype. Let's assume that and that it's not the other way around, okay? Like, I'm expecting that we are all intentional wearers of design and don't do it for the hype. Okay. And yes, if I have to explain even more why this tabi ballerina is so successful, especially I feel like in the last 5 years, like even secondhand, it's a product. If you want to invest in something, I think tabis are fine because the resale value is so high. But I really want to quote somebody that I love to quote since a few videos, you should watch those as well, is Pierre Bourdieu, who again speaks about distinction. So from a sociological lens, the tabi ballerina is form of a cultural distinction again, and Pierre Bourdieu would call it a taste as a marker of class. It's not about economic class here, but cultural class, and they're intentionally polarizing. To most, they look probably odd or ugly or whatever they call it. And to insiders, they're beautiful because they break the rules. Wearing them means that you can handle the discomfort zone, something that makes you look weird and odd towards others. And that's actually power. So if you really enjoy the distinction, being in the discomfort zone of others is something you will enjoy. And this shoe definitely helps doing that. So what these both shoes show, and what I think is very interesting, and that's why sometimes we can compare trends, the 5-finger vibram and also the tabi ballerina have something in common. They both create a status, and not from price, but from the ability to style what others just dismiss. And both are slightly ironic. One in terms of avant-garde, and one is just some sort of performance gear inspired. But both are not that serious. So, Team America, coming to the next thing. And I have to say, I personally struggle with this trend, okay? I really wanted this video to be like super objective, and I'm so on top of everybody else because I don't have to share my opinion constantly. Whew. Cow and zebra prints. Guys, this is really tough for me to watch in fashion. I really have to admit that. Animal prints have been around forever in fashion, but especially in the US, cow and zebra patterns carry very specific cultural baggage. Cow prints are usually rooted in Western iconography, for example, rodeo arenas, ranch workwear, cowboy culture, and zebra prints are actually more of African origin and were popularized here in the 1980s and 90s as a glam clubwear statement. And when we reached the Y2K era, both prints were completely absorbed by the pop culture. Like cow and zebra print was the go-to going out look. I also think that a short attention span overall on all media formats, I'm also speaking about you guys, is just triggering people to use more like eclectic and loud patterns. And I think if you wear like a cow print tube top with the zebra head, it's just something that people might stop on for a few seconds. So I do think that these kind of huge prints is also the reason why I think Emilio Pucci is rising right now. Different thing, we're not talking about Pucci today, but I think cow and zebra prints specifically are rising so much because they're so easily recognizable. The good thing about this trend is it doesn't need a high price tag. It's just culturally loaded and already works by itself. It's an easy trend. It's a DIY-able, thrift-worthy trend that you can have easily access to, which is always great when it's something that everybody can easily just wear. But this one, maybe we should just try to get the access a bit harder when it comes to cow print. Like, just don't make it so easy, the access to cow prints. Like, I don't know, isn't PETA doing something here? Are we sure about where these leathers come from? Okay, this is not, none of these trends are competing with each other. But if we have to think of what may be rooted more from, the European side, the French side, when it comes to colors or patterns, there's one term being used way too often. And please explain to me in the comments if you know why, because I don't get it. I really don't get it. And usually I get a lot of stuff in fashion, but this is something I don't get. Butter yellow. Butter yellow isn't actually just a new invention. It's just pastel yellows that have cycled in and out of fashion for decades. And in France and across Europe, this seems like a very particular shade that a lot of people love. Soft, creamy, and almost edible, yeah? It has its roots in the minimalist fashion scene, I would say. Especially the Scandinavian brands. Yes, you are responsible of this. I say Totem. I say By Melon Burger. I say also, I don't know many more right now. But these brands embraced very early the subtle change from beige to butter yellow. I feel like it's the new neutral. But also, French brand Jacquemus is probably one of those driving the color yellow a lot. I would say it's probably already a sign of the narrative of Jacquemus. And it is a bit more of a warmer tone. It is more Mediterranean and warmth inspired. I would immediately see also the ocean next to it. So it's definitely not the sunshine bright yellow that we're so used from American sportswear. It's this slightly, I don't want to use the word, but like, this subtle hue of European luxury that this butter yellow shade is supposed to resemblance. Wait, I just figured you might assume that my shirt here is butter yellow, but I swear it is not. It could technically be butter yellow. I'm not 100% sure. It looks different though. I wore gray underneath. This is a very distinct form of styling, and it shows that I'm not team butter yellow. Next, competitors. You know what? I just turned it into a competition now. I don't care anymore. We're talking about a pair of American pants that have ruled fashion for a long, long time, even me as a teenager, but I feel like something slightly shifted and they're as relevant as any other pant form right now. It's a staple in a wardrobe. And I'm speaking about cargo pants. Cargo pants actually started their life in the 1930s as British military gear and were built for soldiers who needed more pockets than probably hands, and the US picked them up in the World War II, and after the war they kind of bled into civilian workwear. Fast forward to the 90s and they became kind of something completely different out of context, which is great, because this is a pair of pants where you want to change the meaning of it. They became something entirely different, and suddenly we saw it in form of baggy pants. It was suddenly tied to skate culture. We saw it in hip-hop videos, and they were kind of like the stigma of anti-Polish that none of the parents ever wanted to see wearing their kids, and they've cycled in and out of relevance ever since, and each time it's kind of changing. If we think of the current fashion landscape, which I think goes more into the direction of sophistication and conservative dressing, which I'm not a fan of, but I think the cargo pant is adapting to that. We don't really see the belt-dragging, insane sizes of the 90s, but this one is a lot sleeker. We have parachute nylons, we have cinched hems, we have pastels and muted neutrals. We've literally seen it from functional gear to streetwear to luxury dressing right now. This is something we see since the 90s. I have to think of Jesquier for Balenciaga, who probably created the most popular cargo pant transformation that I've ever seen in my life, and is probably one of the most relevant examples for that style evolution overall. And we definitely see that it has adapted to the finesse of fashion also, and it now turned a lot into a luxury good. And there's a theory by Everett Rogers that explains this pretty well, which is called the diffusion of inventions. I very quickly want to introduce this theory because it's so interesting and you can apply it to almost every trend ever, and it kind of helps you to understand in what degree this trend is right now. So what Everett Rogers actually explains is how trends, ideas, or products go through the stages of a population. And there are 5 stages of people. First group, the innovators, the first to try something new. These are the risk takers, trendsetters, it's you and me, okay? Then there's group number 2, the early adopters. These are the socially influential people who help legitimize the trend. Then there's number 3, the early majority, the group nobody wants to be part in, the mainstream audience that only adapts once it's proven. Then there's mom and dad, the late majority, the skeptical crowd that only joins when it's already everywhere. And 5, they're the laggards, the ones that are only joining once it's unavoidable. They almost have to join the trend to be able to wear pants. It's like cargo pants took over everywhere and there are no other pants anymore. Then they join. These are the worst people. So if you want to break this down on the example of cargo pants, we could also say that the skaters and streetwear innovators are the initial innovators. Then it gets a bit more popular and the early adapters like stylists and influencers start wearing them. So it gets a bit more traction. And once it hits Zara and Nike, it also hits the late majority. And at the very end, when you see everybody wearing it, because I don't know a person that doesn't have a cargo pant right now, you're too late. You're too late to be considered cool according to Everett Rogers. Sorry. Coming to France, Paris specifically, a trend, a different pant silhouette that we see very often. I would say, honestly, is it still trending? It would have actually been interesting if I would have put on the graph on what trending evolution right now these things are. That would have made this a lot more factual and interesting. But it's too late for this because I just now talked about this theory. Too late. I'm speaking about the barrel leg, okay? The shape nobody believed could have been a popular shape. Like, this leg shape is for me the proof. Stick to your ideas, stick to your beliefs, and push it. It will get hyped one day. You just need to wait for it. Barrel legs. And barrel leg trousers aren't actually completely new. The silhouette traces back to mid-century European tailoring, when volume and taper were a way to kind of build shape into the menswear and womenswear they wear alike. But we have to admit the cut owes also a lot to the Japanese design as it does for the French, with designers like Yohji Yamamoto and Issey Miyake influencing how Paris saw volume and also as an architectural choice suddenly, rather than just like a weird aesthetic. But now we have it, and there are good examples as well. I really enjoy the Le Maire shape, and I think it looks amazing on every person in the world except for me, okay? What I like about it is that it's not something that is supposed to make your body stand out, you know, your physique. It's really not, it's not body hugging, which is amazing, which is probably my favorite kind of proportional silhouette, but it is something where you need to be aware of how to style it to make sense. I think what is the big problem with this trend again is in comparison to the cargo look, which is just a heritage piece in the end, so it is something that has a long history and it's something that managed to stay timeless over the last 100 years. The barrel leg has not managed to stay timeless, in my opinion. It already looks outdated to me. And again, there are brands like Le Maire or some brands that really have this Japanese aesthetic in their core, so it makes sense that they keep pushing this kind of silhouette and proportion. But a lot of brands that are doing it, and a lot of Scandinavian and European brands and a lot of French brands also. And it does make so much sense with their aesthetic, and it feels like a very like time restricted piece. Okay, I'm making this quick, 2 more comparisons and then we're done. Going back to US, we're flying around a lot today, okay? Don't get confused. I'm speaking about one of my favorite things, okay? I'm going to be biased here. I'm speaking about the fleece. Yes, exactly, that weird fabric, okay? I know a lot of people that can just not handle even touching fleece, and it makes absolute sense. It's kind of scary. It's too light, you know, to keep you warm. It's like, you know, burn the person that has invented this. This is magic. This is not, you know, but it's amazing. And we're going to talk about it. It's interesting also because it kind of explains how sportswear has turned into like status symbols now. But with the pandemic and with everybody getting so comfortable, suddenly there was something like a dress code. I felt like tracksuit brands were popping out everywhere. Everybody wanted to have a monochrome. If you didn't have a monochrome like sweat set, were you really elevated? You know, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like all these cashmere sets, all these very expensive home sets suddenly popped out there. And that's also where the fleece gained a lot more visibility and also relevance. And I think what it turned later into is a bit the finance bro aesthetic, because the fleece was suddenly worn under like puffer vests, you know, with like a straight chino pant and then designer sneakers, and suddenly the fleece turned into a luxury item because also luxury brands started to launch them. And one of my favorites, and it's beautiful, but yes, doesn't make any sense. It's Miu Miu. Miu Miu had reimagined the fleece jacket in high fashion context suddenly, and pairing it with a mini skirt, tailored trousers, and heels made suddenly, supposedly, absolute sense. The Miu Miu fleece isn't about performance. It's absolutely not. Performance is not cool. It's about the contrast and taking a fabric rooted in sports and twisting it into a luxury statement. It's the European echo a bit of America's tech fleece moment, proving how fleece has moved beyond athleisure into pure fashion territory. So, coming to a French trend that has nothing to do with fleece and is not a counterpart or anything, okay? I'm speaking about another pant shape that is pretty prominent, and I would say for like maybe 2 years now, but this year I think it peaked because it was also everywhere in fast fashion and all these things. I'm talking about capri pants. Capri pants were born in the 1940s in, surprise, Capri, Italy, and truly came alive in French and Italian resort culture in the 50s and 60s. And we see it in slim and ankle-bearing and often paired with like ballet flats. And they were a part of the post-war leisure uniform actually in France. And they stuck in the collective style memory as a symbol of very casual elegance. If you go to Capri, to the island, you might hear also the story how Jackie Kennedy made the term Capri pant actually popular. So there's again something American about it. But yeah, she apparently entered the store in Capri in the island and shopped these pants and wore them constantly. And that's why they were called Capri pant. That's what they told me when I was there. I didn't buy one because back then I thought it was not cool. And now I'd like to have one, I think. Now that I mentioned the name Jackie, you might also know what kind of crowd finds the capri pant very appealing. Yes, the minimalistic, elegant, beige people. They love it a lot. How the capri pant got really successful in the 2000s looked a bit different. It was the tight spandex form that millennials dread, and Parisian styling gives them a lot more clean lines, mid to high waist, and fabrics like linen, cotton, and tailored stretch. And they're worn with slingbacks or loafers, and they're turning a maligned Y2K item into something sharp again, which is not so easy. I like the extreme vintage inspiration this has. I like the cut on the cuff. I like how the shoe is being exposed. I don't think we have this so often. I think it's definitely a lot more elegant version than wearing shorts. So whenever you're between like shorts and a shorter skirt, I think a capri can help you to feel a bit more comfortable and also stylistically visionary, because nobody's wearing capris. Nobody. But I think it's a fine trend. I think for people that don't like to hang around and like butt naked, like, you know, with like denim shorts in the summer, a capri is like the conservative girl summer dressing. So approved. Coming to my last comparison, I'm going to compare here something a bit similar, but we have the American trend. And that's something that is also like relevant since, I would say, 2 years, because Coach is back. And I'm speaking about Coach bags, because they seem to be back. Coach was founded in 1941 in New York, and they started as a small leather goods workshop and became a mid-century American success story in the 90s and early 2000s. It was the accessible luxury bag that people bought into. You had sturdy leather, it was a recognizable branding, everything you need. But there was a lot of overexposure in the malls and outlet stores, which made it lose its prestige by the late 2000s. But thanks to a big marketing budget and also the vintage appeal coming back, Coach is kind of striking back and is super successful with that. I think what they manage well, and I'm not going to speak so much about the aesthetic because I think Coach bags look fine. I think it's comparable to like Tory Burch, which I wouldn't also judge like in a design manner, because I think it's pretty basic still overall. But in terms of Coach, because it also has a heritage and they also started as like high quality handbag manufacturers, it makes sense to see that these kind of brands that were actually big at one time, I think you needed to be big ones to be relevant to the young people now. So your vintage products get successfully sold and turn your brand value up again. Again, like a Coach bag from the 80s, 90s is super popular right now because once Coach did great stuff and now they do it again, but there was a big gap in between. I think Coach is a great representative and probably better than Tory Burch when it comes to American handbag design trending. I have to say I never see it here anywhere. It's also not really stocked here in the stores, like in the big department stores. So I don't know if that's really an American trend because I see it a lot on my socials. But when I look here on the streets, I see more like the Chloe Paddington vintage models, like the classic ones that we see everywhere. But the Coach hasn't made it over the pond yet. So I think that takes a bit more time. But there's a big competitor, and actually these are not competitors. Again, let's not compare, but a bag that is so prominent, okay, so valued, so hard to get. It's shocking. The Loro Piana Extra bag. You don't have one? You don't have a Loro Piana Extra bag? What are you doing here? Loro Piana is an Italian brand that was founded in the 1920s and built its name on the finest cashmere and wools. And the Extra bag is its understated leather tote, kind of. We don't have any loud logos. There are no gimmicks. In Paris, where you see that subtlety is very important, it's been adopted as kind of a staple for the kind of woman who knows her fabrics and her investment pieces. It is funny, though, if you look at it, because it just looks like a vanity bag. I have a Muji vanity bag. It looks exactly the same. And Loro Piana, I think there's no information that Loro Piana is like, okay, that used to be a vanity bag. And we turn it into a handbag because people kept DIYing the bag and turning it into one. Yes, people do that because the handbag is too expensive. So they buy like, I don't know, sunglasses and use the sunglass pochette for it. But overall, everybody DIY as they like. But if you buy it because of the branding, that's pretty embarrassing, you know, then you shouldn't do it. But if you say, I'm so in love with that design and I want to carry it around my neck, you know, then you can do it. What I don't like about this trend and how it evolves is actually, I really love the idea that Loro Piana is not pushing their logo ever. They're one of the biggest textile manufacturers in the world. And if I know that you produce fabric that all the other designers are working with, I also assume that you have a very high level of quality. And I'm sure they do. And I kind of like that they look like nothing, you know, they look like it's just a handbag and that's it. The problem with the popularity is, of course, everybody's changing, right? Everybody that gets popular sooner or later changes. It's not only your best friend, it's also your handbag. So the Loro Piana Extra pouch, that is also being compared to the MS pochette, which I think is so hilarious because one is like a serious handbag and the other one is just like this extra pouch, but people compare it because it's also like worlds of difference in pricing, I think. But what is interesting here is if you go on the Loro Piana website right now, you see tons of versions here. You see also little charms that you can add now, so it's more recognizable that it is a Loro piana. You see also the shape shifting slowly, turning into this triangle shape like the MS bag is, which is a development I don't want to see. Why cannot anybody stay like low-key for longer than a year when they get popular? Like, why do you need to adapt to the only one, you know, that is stronger than you are? Why do you need to look like MS? So this is something I'm not happy about. Do I think the Loro piana bag is a good investment? I have no idea. I don't know. It just looks so basic, I cannot even tell. It's just interesting how often I see that bag here. Like, I don't see the Coach bag, but I see tons of Loro piana bag. I see Bottega Veneta. All the brands, all the design-focused, design-driven luxury brands right now have copied that bag, which I think is kind of cool and a goal though. Like, having like the most basic bag in your portfolio and then having all the big designer luxury houses copy it is kind of goals. But do I like it? I don't really like it. I think it's a very basic bag. I think with that money you can get something a bit more interesting. That's kind of the reason why we have it around. It's I think it was the entry-level designer bag. It was a if you know, you know bag. And then suddenly people figured it looks also a bit like a way more expensive bag. That's how it got successful. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was less analytical than usual, but sometimes we also just need to speak about stuff that we see, just about stuff. If you do enjoy these videos, you probably will also like the Patreon, where I have even more videos, where I vlog also, like normal human beings, and don't only sit in my living room and talk to a camera by myself. You will also have access to the Discord, which is the most beautiful place in the world. Did I say this already? It's heaven sent, human made. I'm sure that's a slogan that exists already for any kind of luxury brand. Join the Discord, the links are down below. See you to the next one. Have a good summer. I have a tiger mosquito plug in Paris.